There's always this brief moment where I feel like I'm stuck in the matrix and I don't know what's happening because it says I'm live on Facebook on Zoom, but I'm not seeing it on my live Facebook feed yet because there's like a 10-second delay. So I do this every time. That's okay. I'm going to continue to do it every time. What's up, everybody? It is Monday again, first Monday of the month. Welcome to Parents Helping Parents. Okay, sorry everybody. I was muting myself because I was hearing all of it at once. So welcome to Parents Helping Parents Live. Thanks everybody for joining us. I'm really glad you could be with us. I'm excited about tonight. I'm excited about the story that we're going to be hearing, the information that we're going to be getting. So if you are not familiar with Parents Helping Parents, we're an Oklahoma City-based nonprofit organization founded by parents for the most part, run by parents with the mission of providing resources, education, and shared experiences to parents who have a child any age that's struggling with a substance use disorder. So if you have a 15-year-old that's struggling with an alcohol or drug problem, or you have a 55-year-old son or daughter that's struggling with an alcohol problem or a drug problem, Parents Helping Parents is here to support you. We're here to help you get some much needed education. We're here to help you find resources. And most importantly, our parents are here to share their experiences with you and to relate to what you're going through and share some of the things that they learned along the way, some of the questions that they were able to find answers to. So thanks for joining us. I'm really glad you're here. I want to direct you to do a couple of things while we're kind of getting rolling here and while the live stream's kind of getting up and running. If you haven't already, on Facebook, there's this magical little button called a share button. And that button will take this live stream and we'll put it on your wall for all of your friends and family to see, which is great because if you've got 800 friends on your timeline, I guarantee you that you've got a friend or a family member who knows someone or knows another family that's struggling with alcohol or drug related issues. And the message that they get tonight, to be honest, it could save somebody's life. It can make a difference. So by people sharing the video, we exponentially increase the number of parents and the number of families, the number of individuals we're able to reach with our message. So it's the number one thing I think you can do to support our organization and to support other small businesses is just to like and share content. So thanks everybody for doing that for me. Want you to be aware of a couple other things. If you're seeing this because somebody shared it, be sure to follow us on Facebook at Parents Helping Parents Inc. That's where you can keep in touch with all of the wonderful things that our organization is up to throughout the year, including upcoming fundraisers and events and things like that. But also it gives you access to be updated on all of the live meetings that we host. So here in Oklahoma City, Edmond, Norman, Tulsa, Wichita, lots of places. We have live meetings that are beginning to, some of them are beginning to move back to live now. A lot of them are still doing all Zoom meetings, but the goal is that those are local chapters where you can connect with families who are actually there in person to support you and to give you the information. So we're really glad that you're watching the live stream, which is great, but there is no substitute for being in a room full of people who are there to support you and have been through what you've been through and have walked down that path. So I want to encourage you that if you're in an area where we have a local chapter, get plugged in, build some relationships with those people. So that information is on our Facebook page at Parents Helping Parents Inc. You can also visit us at our newly kind of redesigned website at parentshelpingparents.info, which has access to all of those meetings as well. You can also get phone numbers to local chapters so that you can call and actually talk to some parent coaches and get some additional support that way. So want to advise everybody that Parents Helping Parents as an organization has no professional expertise or experience. We are simply people who have walked down a difficult path of supporting somebody that has an alcohol or drug problem. And so our mission is limited to those things, sharing our experiences, providing resources, providing education. Nothing that we do as an organization should ever be considered a substitute for professional counseling, legal advice, medical advice. All of those things are really great, and we want you to get those if they're appropriate for your needs, but just don't confuse us with actually providing those services. We're here to connect you with those services, not actually do them ourselves. So I'm really excited about what we've got going on tonight. I'm going to click myself over to gallery view so that we can see these wonderful ladies. we've got a good close friend of mine here from Oklahoma City, Chelsea, and her mother-in-law Jill, who are going to be joining us and sharing their story and talking about enabling and how parents can make the transition from enabling to empowering. So I'm excited for them to be here and share their story. Ladies, I will let you two introduce yourselves however you see fit. I'm going to go on mute and kind of sit back and enjoy the show while you tell your story, and then we'll chat again here in a little bit. So thank you so much both for being here. Thank you for your willingness to share your story and be vulnerable and help the next struggling family.
Well, thank you for having us, Derek. I really appreciate it, because I know that, when I was struggling through all of this, my mother had no idea what to do. She just kind of gave up, and so was hoping that it would just kind of resolve itself. And so anything that I can do, that we can do, that would educate other people looking for help, parents and loved ones, I'm all about it. So growing up, I thought that I grew up with DARE in the schools, and so I thought that a drug addict would be someone that lived under a bridge and was shooting up heroin and just smelled really bad. And so I never really put my face out there as an addict or an alcoholic. I really didn't even understand the term. I just knew it was something that I didn't want to be. I was always making straight A's and doing well in school, so I didn't really think that I would ever have an issue with that. So my mom started giving me Adderall, about 16 years old, because I grew up in a household where everything had to look great from the outside. And so my mom rarely would talk about any kind of mishap going on in the home. So it always had to look, like perfection. So that meant excelling in school, excelling in sports. So she would give me Adderall, and it really would just, give me the energy and the focus to study and things like that. So, I enjoyed the way it made me feel, and I didn't really understand what that was. I just knew that it made me happy, and it made me really tolerate people, because at that point, I did not like people. I didn't want to be around people. I just kind of, who would have thought that one day I would, be helping others in this disease. My name's Chelsea Williams. Sorry if I skipped that. This is my mother-in-law, Jill. She kind of witnessed our struggles firsthand. So it started when I met her son. So do you want to talk a little bit about Jeremy's, struggle with drugs, like through high school and all that, or what you kind of witnessed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll let you.
I'm just going to switch.
Okay.
We're switching computers. Yeah, I'm Jill Bass, Jeremy's mother. And I don't know, I can probably go back to 8th grade, where I realize now, that he had some issues. At one point, I caught him selling pot out of my house. He would come home on lunch break and sit out in my driveway and measure it out, and people would come and pick it up. And then things just got worse, and he just spiraled out of control. And so for at least 16 years, he was addicted. And I think probably at least 5 times he overdosed that I'm aware of. And did I enable them? Yes, I did, because I felt like I needed to be there so he wouldn't die. And I let them live with me. I should not have done that. I took the boys every weekend to see them, and I shouldn't have done that. But as a single mom, that was my biggest fear, that he was going to die. And I'm truly surprised but he didn't. Because there was days that he would walk into my house and he couldn't even walk from the front door to the middle of the room. And as a nurse, I guess I was just totally blind, and it just upsets me knowing that I didn't realize what was going on and how bad he was getting. But through the grace of God, he finally came to his senses and asked for help, and went to Rob's Ranch and then on to sober living, as did Chelsea. Well, she didn't go to Rob's Ranch, but
If I could, I would.
yeah. It's a pretty awesome place.
So,
But
sorry.
Go ahead.
So I met Jeremy when I was 19, and so he was the one that really introduced me to opiates. And so as soon as I tried that drug, I knew that immediately that was something that made me feel just complete, like I could just forget everything that was going on, and I was able to just breathe for the first time in my life. I was able to forget about all the chaos going on at home, and basically, I was able to forget about how I felt in my own skin. I was comfortable for the first time ever. And so with addiction, I'm sure you'll hear a lot that this disease progresses. It gets worse and worse and worse. And a lot of times when people relapse, they jump right back into where they left off. I mean, I don't care if it's been 10 years or 6 months, they pick up right back where they left off, if not worse. So I met him, and we started using opiates heavily. Mine started off with Lortabs and quickly jumped to Oxycontin, which jumped to Opana, which jumped to methadone. So there was a time where we were heavily strung out on Oxycontin, and tax season rolled around. And so for drug addicts and alcoholics, we love when we get money back from the government. And so it was like a $1,200 check, and we were so excited. And so we went and bought a script of pills. And, in a blink of an eye, it's gone, just like that. And so at the time, we were living with my mother, who was, enabling, because a lot of things about enabling is, one, there's denial that my child really isn't a drug addict or an alcoholic, or it was something that I did, and so we want to keep that exterior looking great, and so we're not going to reach out to anybody. And so there's the denial of, this is not really going on with me. And so and there's another term of where, maybe it's just a phase. Maybe it's, they're hoping that they'll snap out of it if something major happens in their life, like graduating college or something like that. So I guess she was just hoping that this would be a phase and we'd snap out of it, because the drug addict or alcoholic should know when to quit and should be able to have all the options right then and there. So I think she was just kind of waiting. And so we were living in her third floor room. My mom has a 3-story house, and we were staying on that top floor. And this top floor has no carpet. So when you would walk on it, you could hear every single footstep in the living room downstairs. And so we get this script and we take it home. And so we were injecting them at this point. And then, he went first, and then, eventually I just saw him just kind of fall out. And so this isn't the first time I'd seen him overdose. So he had overdosed several times in front of me. And but this time there's blood coming out of his mouth from him biting his tongue. And it seemed like every time that he would seize, it would take longer for him to come back to me. So as he's having a seizure, I'm holding him in my arms, and I'm just saying, wake up, snap out of it, snap out of it. And, he eventually comes to, but he does not recognize who I am. He doesn't know what's going on. He does not know what's happening around him. And so eventually he regains the strength in his legs. And so for some reason, he just wanted to get up and walk around. And so every time that he would get up, he'd fall to the floor. And when he fell to the floor, my mother would hear it downstairs. And every time that he would fall, I'd scream because I didn't want my mom to know what was going on, which is kind of sounds stupid right now. But and also I was scared for him. So he would get up and he'd fall down and I'd scream. And so my mother runs up to the third floor and kind of bangs on the door because we had locked it. And so I leave him to do his thing and I go run over to the door and I think that I unlock it, but never quite make it that far because I see him out of the corner of my eye go to one of the windows. And this window is probably, I mean, it's not very big. He had to like crouch down to get in it. And so I see him throw back the curtains and open up the window. And so I run back over to him and I see him jump out. And I don't know if it's just some kind of he's trying to escape the situation or what was going on. And I remember holding his hand and I remember thinking that this is the last time I'm going to see this man alive. At this point, we had a son. And he was 1 year old at this point, and he was with Jill, thank goodness, because we weren't making the best choices. And so I just remember holding his hand and thinking that I'm never going to see him alive, and he's never going to grow up and see his kid and be a part of his life. And so eventually we hold on for so long, and we start losing our grip, and he slips. And he falls. And when he falls, he lands on a wooden bench and he lands and hits his knee and he hits his face. And his face is pushed in and the rest of his face is pushed out. And I'm thinking that he's dead and that's it. And but I have to put on a brave face right now because I can't see what's going on with him. I need to hide the pills so I can have something to cope with when I'm done with all of this, when people get out of my hair and I'm able to be by myself again. So I hide the spoon, I hide the lighter, I hide all the pills that we got before that. And then I was ready to check on him. And my 13-year-old niece had seen him hit the ground at that point, and so they rush him to the hospital. And I've got some pictures, and they're kind of graphic, I guess. So, if you guys don't like blood, please avert your eyes. But this is him when he got to the hospital. I don't know if you can see that. But what had happened was he had broken his jaw. And so they had to wire his jaw shut. And so when he landed, his teeth went through his chin right there. So they had to stitch that up. And so he's got screws all in his face now.
11 plates and screws.
And while he's at the hospital looking like that, I have the cops show up at my house, my mom's house, and they're investigating it for attempted murder on my part. And so, this is someone who's never been in trouble with the law except a speeding ticket, which I would just cry if I got pulled over because I was a do-gooder and I did everything and by the rules and this and that and the other. And so, just having someone to really investigate me like that, I was thinking, who do you think you are? Do you know who I am? This entitlement that I had. And then I was mad at him for putting me in that situation because I'm a drug addict and really I'm selfish and nothing else matters but me and my fix. It didn't matter that we had a kid. It didn't matter, what I put my family through because this is a family disease. And whatever the addict or alcoholic is going through, it ripples out and affects the family as well. So needless to say, he went and sought treatment after that. But I remember being at his bedside in the hospital, and he had a morphine drip going on. And And I went to the hospital, and I would like break down these pills and swirl them up in this insure that they were giving him. And I'd like suck it up in like a turkey baster kind of thing. And like shoot it through the hole where he had lost his tooth through the fall. So he lost a tooth right there in the bottom front. And so I'd suck all that up in like some kind of needle type thing, and then just kind of put it through the hole. And so he wouldn't withdraw in the hospital. I mean, that's how strung out we were. And just feeding him Xanax and feeding him opiates so that he wouldn't withdraw while having a morphine drip through all of this. It just blows my mind, because I mean this, and a lot of times parents will say, why don't they just snap out of it? Why can't they just stop? And it's not that easy. For one, it's terrifying. It is terrifying to have to put down that drug or that drink, that the only thing we know how to cope with that has worked. We're scared to death to put it down, because that is the one thing that made us feel human again and feel normal, and we at the same time think that nobody else knows what's going on. And so it works until it doesn't, until it takes over our lives, and produces chaos. And that's what happened. And so he goes to treatment, I go to treatment, and it really wasn't my choice to go to treatment. I did it to appease my mother, and I'm sure that's what Jeremy did too, just to kind of, because we knew people were breathing down our throat because of this accident. So just to, I mean, these are, days after his accident, and he's still healing. And this wasn't enough. This wasn't enough to say, hey, I think I have a problem and it's going to take my life if something doesn't change. We do not think that way. We think that we are invincible, and we think that we are okay, and we might be exaggerating. We're not as bad off as the people that need treatment. So we just try to fix it ourselves and do it our own way, without asking for any help. So we both went to treatment, and the thing is, when we left treatment, we went straight back into the same environment. Nothing changes if nothing changes, right? So when we go back into those same environments, it produces the same effects. What were you thinking through his fall and his, all that stuff going on?
Yeah, the fall was the most terrifying thing. When I got to the hospital, they wouldn't let me go back there. I had to sit there and wait. And there had been a gang shooting, and they put the ER on lockdown, and I had to sit out there for 4 hours before they would let me go back and see him. And when I finally got back there and saw him, my heart just sunk. I thought, he was going to lose his eye, and if he lived through it. But I could not believe that wasn't rock bottom, that wasn't enough to make him stop.
And there were so many times where we just kept crashing at your house constantly. So if anything would go wrong, Jeremy would constantly reach out to you. I mean, really, because he knew that you would help. And so that's another thing about enabling. We can justify why we're doing this, because we feel like that we need to protect our child through this, or we'll take up those credit card bills that they rack up and pay for that so they don't screw up their lives, and really you just want to be that safe haven for them. And so we would crash at Jill's constantly, and he would sell pills out of her house, and just sorry.
Yeah, I know. So, yeah.
And we, it just, and a lot of times you would stay silent just because you didn't want to ruffle feathers, and you didn't want to have any kind of conflict. And it wasn't until, there were so many times where she asked us to leave. And then I remember one time, we were shooting up in her home, and she walked in on us and caught us. And I'm not sure which time it was, but I mean, there was a time where she said, "Hey, you got to go," and we knew that that door was closed, and it must have taken a lot of strength, because at that time, I had another little boy, and he was 2.5, maybe 3 at this point, and to muster up the courage to say that you have to leave, and you cannot stay here anymore. And that's a part of empowerment, on your half, because you know as a parent you shouldn't have to babysit, and you deserve a life as well. And it's up to the parent and the loved one to set those healthy boundaries. So she set that boundary of, you can't come here anymore, until you fix your life. And we were angry. We were so pissed off. I mean, just any cussing, any kind of name, any kind of bullying, and just intimidation. Because Jeremy was at a point where nobody can tell me no type of thing. And so he would just constantly, anytime he'd go to jail, he was calling his mom and saying, "Hey, get me out." And so it took a lot. And then there was, times where, you refused to get him out of jail.
Yeah, I remember they were in Potawatomi, and Jeremy kept calling me, begging me to get him out of there. And finally, I quit answering the calls, and he called me 84 times. 84 times.
Like, I'm serious. Nobody tells this man no,
I don't know how he managed to be able to do that. But, yeah.
But to not pick up that phone and know that he was safe in jail. And really, there's a point where you just got to let go of the reins. You got to let go of that control, because you just worry yourself sick.
It was killing me. I mean, I was just, yeah.
And every time that we were at your house, it caused chaos in your home, with your other son, and just not being sure if he'd come back and things would still be in place, or if things would be gone, or
oh yeah, he sold my jewelry and stole my daughter's TV when she was gone, and which that in itself is another story, because she no longer speaks to me because of all of this. And her and Jeremy were very close growing up, very close. And it's been over 10 years since she's spoken to any of us. So, I mean, it doesn't just affect the addict, it affects the whole family,
Jill, we had somebody text a question for you on our text line. I wanted to see if you could answer that for us real quick. What kind of support, if any, were you getting or seeking out while Chelsea and Jeremy were active in their addiction?
In the beginning, I did not know where to turn. I had no resources. And then finally, I started getting some information, and I started going to a support group. And that was one of the best things that I did. And I learned, that I wasn't the only one. I wasn't alone in this. And as I started getting healing, I think they started to heal. They saw that, they needed to get better.
And I'll just go back to, so if someone's child or loved one is strung out, how do I help the situation? How do I fix it? Jill mentioned meetings. Meetings are huge, because the addict or alcoholic has a community of AA or NA or Celebrate Recovery or sober living, but what does the parent have? The parent also, the loved one needs to have that group around him just as much as the addict or alcoholic, and say, "Hey, me too." There's something so powerful about hearing "me too," that you're not the only one going through these things, that you're not crazy, and that there is hope. I think that that's the biggest thing, is that people, or our loved ones that are addicts or alcoholics aren't bad people. They're just sick, and they don't know how to cope with life. They don't know how to get help. And like I said, fear is paralyzing, especially making that first step. And so I think a lot of it is, you attend those meetings and you attend them regularly, because if you just go to one, or you take part in one every 6 months or so, you're really not getting the effect that would benefit you. So in the addict alcoholic world, they say, hey, 90 meetings in 90 days. That way you can get familiar with people around you. You can start seeing those familiar faces, and people know what you're going through. They're going to celebrate the wins with you, and they're going to grieve your losses or your struggles. And so to be able to fight this on your own is it's almost impossible, because you have no life if you're constantly worried sick about your loved one. And learning to take that control, or let go of it and put it in God's hands. And then, just work your program as well, because I love this saying, it's a family disease. It doesn't affect just one person. It affects several people. And some, especially mamas that are so invested in their child and want to see the best, it's actually making it worse sometimes. That codependency of, hey, you need a place to stay, or you need a place to crash. Hey, yeah, I'll take care of you. Hey, you're hungry, you need something to eat, and this, all these things of just enabling. And so I just highly recommend you hit meetings regularly. That way, you gain that support that you need. And then setting boundaries, just like Jill did, by saying, hey, no more. It's got to go. And so, a lot of time with my mother, she cut me off early. She's from the second that, it took several years, but when she was done, she's like, don't call me until you need help, type of thing. And even then she was very hesitant, because I said, I'm sorry, I don't know how many times. And I said I'd change, I don't know how many times, but it's the parents and the loved ones that want to see results. And, I tell parents all the time, if it's in your gut that they're not doing what they need to be doing, then you're probably, right, because you've seen this great person form, and then, they start slacking off on their meetings, or, not keeping their commitments. And so those are, something that you really want to look for.
Yeah.
I think as a parent, and I think probably 90% of the parents say, what did I do wrong? How did this happen to my child? This can't have happened to my child. I did something wrong. But you didn't cause it, you can't cure it, and you can't control it.
One of the beautiful things that I think you guys have touched on several different times is, addiction's a family disease, but families also find recovery. Individuals can find recovery, but when families find recovery, it's such a beautiful thing. And so Jill talking about how she changed and how she got support, and then seeing how it helped pull the rest of the family into finding help as well, is really a beautiful picture of family recovery. So I've got a couple questions I want to ask, but Chelsea, tell us a little bit about like where you guys are at now.
What God has done in my life. My husband and I, so we were dating or engaged this whole time. So we were together 13 years before we got married, because drugs are more important at that point. And then, we had kids, 2 kids throughout that process. So we feel like, we did everything backwards, which we did. So he has a month more than I do, and I'm very competitive, but I'm okay with him having just a little bit more sobriety than I do. He just walked in and I hear an echo, sorry. And so he went to a treatment center in Purcell, and this is where God opened doors for me is, I went through a state funded detox, TRC, and then went to a state funded facility as well in Oklahoma City. And, man, God just kept opening doors for me. And after I went to treatment, they recommended aftercare. And so, it kind of was a no-brainer since I was homeless anyway and we had nowhere to go. So I went into sober living for a couple of years, thinking that I was going to stay 3 months. And so as I was in there, in sober living, I was able to pay off these court fines because I've got 2 felonies on my record now. One's for child neglect, and then another one is for controlled dangerous substance. And so, I was on probation at that point. And anyway, I continued to stay sober and paid off all these fines. And eventually we got married. Say what? We got married. And then we were able to buy a home here in Edmond. And this is from, coming, living off, from couch to couch and never having a secure address. So we're able to buy a home. And we were able to get back custody of our kids. And that was just an awesome moment because the attorney said that it's not very often that parents come back for their kids. And so as we were married a couple of years, we decided to actually plan a pregnancy. It's kind of crazy when you're sober, you can plan these things. And so we have a little daughter now who is 8 months old tomorrow. And so, yeah, we've got 5+ years sobriety each and about to move into our second home because we outgrew this one. And I'm still working on road rage, Derek, but I'm able to be as mellow as I've ever been, not quick to anger. And it's just a really cool feeling to not just, jump down someone's throat every time they offend me, so I'm able to put things in perspective and to just live life to the fullest.
If it makes you feel better, in my therapeutic experience, road rage is one of those things that just takes a lifetime of work to really overcome completely.
I can't drive in Texas. I can't.
Man, what a beautiful story of addiction and hope and recovery, and you and your husband both. From the pictures that you showed earlier, like quite literally on like the steps of death to fixing your relationship, fixing your marriage, getting the custody of your children back, and having a beautiful, healthy family. I mean, it's just amazing.
And it started by her getting the putting her life where it needed to be. Because had she not gotten help, we were too content under her roof, and so, why should we change our lives if everything was perfectly fine living with her, Had she not put her foot down, it would never have started the ball rolling with us ever.
And that's the real shift from enabling to empowering.
Absolutely.
Is when parents and when family members get help and get support and begin to change, they then can empower others in the family to do the same thing. So Jill, kudos for getting the party started. I'm sure that being a grandmother now is much more satisfying than it was 5 years ago.
Yes, definitely. I didn't have to raise 2 other little boys.
Hey, Chelsea, I wanted to tell you thank you for, I hear a lot of people tell their stories, right? Not just because I'm doing the live stream, but just being a part of the community in Oklahoma City. This, we're around people all the time who are sharing their stories and sharing stories of recovery, and then also stories that don't quite end so well. And it's not very often that I hear somebody like authentically, like you did, share actually how terrifying it is to be stuck in addiction. Like from an emotional perspective, like the own emotional turmoil that you're in, being so afraid to go without your substance because you don't know what life is going to be like. So thank you for that, like little, like kind of moment of real vulnerability, because I really appreciated that. So,
You're welcome.
Jill, if you could go back in time 6 or 7 years, maybe longer, right? And
Yeah.
give yourself a piece of advice that you think would have been really valuable for you when you were watching your son struggle with his addiction, what would you have told yourself, or what would you tell yourself?
Try to find help for myself and for him. Yeah, I think now there are more programs out there, resources for parents, loved ones. Whereas when all of this first started for me, there wasn't. I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know who to talk to. And it was, 16 years before I finally found help for myself.
Wow.
And that was one of the best things that I ever did.
Yeah. Here's a question that came in on the live text line for you ladies. One or both of you, feel free to answer. Do the resentments ever get better after you've gone through, like, to be quite honest, so much hell?
It's hard. I have to be honest. To this day, I resent a lot of things that I went through because of them. But it's part of the healing. I just thank God that they're in the place that they're at now. Yeah.
So I find myself recently having to work a 4-step. So that's the beauty of the 12 steps. You can just get those resentments right out. And so I think, having gone through the 12 steps, it makes things a lot easier to handle those resentments. And so, but I am, you're not just a one and done type of thing. I mean, they do get easier because you're able to step back and say, okay, I was out of my mind on that, what went on there. And so when you're in sobriety, you're able to kind of process things a little bit better and not so quick to jump to conclusions. And so you're at a slower pace and you're not addicted to chaos. Because I remember when I was like driving, here we go with the driving again. But I was in a rush everywhere we went, and for some reason we got pulled over every time I turned around. And I don't understand that. But now, well, okay, I got pulled over twice since I've been sober, but that's a lot less than, what I was getting pulled over. So, and he gave me a warning this last time, never happened. But yes, it's easier to roll with those resentments, but, I would, encourage the addict or alcoholic in recovery to constantly or continue to work the steps and not just one time and you're done type of thing, because new resentments come up. So
yeah. This isn't a question, but Miss Chotzi Barnes just wanted to tell both you ladies that you're the real deal, and that your story of restoration is just really inspiring to lots of people. So to keep it up and keep carrying the message.
cool.
So
He's amazing.
Real quick, this is one of my favorite questions to kind of begin to kind of wrap us up. So if you're watching live and you've got questions that you'd like Chelsea and Jill to answer, be sure to send those in, because we've only got maybe 5 or 10 minutes left, and we want to make sure that we get all of those answered. So as people are maybe finishing up and sending their questions in, Chelsea, be thinking about what you want to share about Resurgence. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about them as we're wrapping up. But I would also like each of you to tell me if you had like 1 minute to give a message to a family that was struggling with an addiction, like tonight, what would that message be?
Well, I guess, like I said, there is hope. Never give up hope. You didn't cause it, you can't cure it, and you can't control it. I said a lot of prayers, and seek help. There's a lot of resources out there now. I'm still going to meetings. Every couple of weeks, we have a meeting and I go. And I've been going 6 years now. And people say, why are you still going? They're fine. And I said, because there's other parents out there that need to hear my story. And they need to know that somebody's there for them.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would just encourage the family who's struggling, as long as there's breath in their lungs, it's not too late. There is always hope. God's timing is perfect. I don't know. He just, it still blows my mind to this day. But stay connected. That's the main thing I tell families, and it's the main thing I tell people in recovery, because as soon as you lose that connection, as soon as you lose that community, it's real hard to deal with the outside world. It's real easy to say, screw it, I'm done, and then you forget about everything that you worked so hard to, because in a blink of an eye, as addicts and alcoholics, we can make a split decision and everything's gone, and we can end up right back where we started, and may even lose our life. Because I've got several friends, Lee and Marie, who did not get a chance to live her life because she relapsed once, and now she's not with us anymore. So stay connected, stay in that community, because that is your lifeline. That is who are the people that are going to call you out on your crap. Because here in addiction, you can't sugarcoat stuff. It's just, this is life or death. And I think that a lot of people forget that. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping people, because I wanted to die, and I was to a point where I didn't care. If I died, fine, because I was stuck in my pity party, and my kids were better off without me. I don't have a dog that loves me, or I hate the world, and I hate everybody who smiles or who laughs. And today I am done a 180. I love people. You say, what? Yes, I love people. I still love animals. And then I love life, and I love watching the leaves change on the trees. I love the flowers blooming. I mean, it's just nuts. I consider my life a fairy tale story, because I should have been dead. And so my heart breaks for those who are struggling to survive right now and don't look at life the way I do. And so that's why I fight so hard to help change those perspectives. So don't give up.
I think people need to know too that just because they go into recovery or sober living, people think, okay, the next day they should be fine. They're not, because it takes a good 2 years for their brains to heal and get back to a normal status. So, I mean, every day I see changes in them, even still.
Great. Hey, Chelsea, I know you've got the opportunity to work in the industry as an industry professional. Why don't you take just a minute or two, tell us about Resurgence, tell people what you guys do, how to get in touch with either you or them if they're in need of additional information or services.
Yeah, so I work for a treatment center called Resurgence Behavioral Health. We're a 30-day treatment center, and we're located in Texas, California, and Tennessee. And so it is male and female, 18 and up. So we have gender-specific facilities in California. So an all-women's facility in California, all-men's facility in California. The other ones are co-ed. But the best part is they get to bring we're animal friendly. And so they get to bring their little puppy or parakeet or whatever it is, because that's the one thing that loves us and or will love us back when we're in this horrible state of our life. And so to be able to take that dog with us is pretty cool, because I love animals now. And so they specialize in trauma as well. And so they really know how to work on the sex addiction and the gambling addiction and eating disorders as well, paired with the addiction, the substance abuse. So my cell phone number, they can reach out to me that way, and call me, text me anytime. This disease just does not take holidays. So my number is 405-215-7104, and I'm here to help anytime. So just give me a call and I'll get you set up with, if you need detox or if you need treatment or you need sober living, whatever it is, we'll figure it out.
Excellent. Hey, thank you so much. And for people that are watching or listening, I have put in the comments thread of this video, I've tagged Chelsea, I've put her cell phone number, and I've also put the Resurgence website and Facebook page in that comment thread. So if anybody's watching it and they want that information, just go to the comments. It should be close to the bottom. It's on there. Hey, thank you, ladies. What's that?
I said I'm TikTok famous.
Oh, you're TikTok famous. I've seen a few of those. Are actually not that bad. What you really should do is TikTok your road rage.
I know. It'll be bad. It'll be bad.
All right. Hey, ladies, honestly, thank you so much. One, for your willingness to be here and be vulnerable and share your story, even though that's emotional and that's hard and that's challenging. But really, more than that, thank you for doing that on an ongoing, regular basis through the work that Chelsea, you do in the community, and Jill, that you do just through the support groups that you're a part of. So you ladies know this, but it's nice to hear it. You are making a difference in people's lives. And that is a very important and powerful thing. So thank you so much for being here tonight, for taking your time to do this. I know you guys said you were nervous. You didn't need to be nervous. You were fantastic. And the comments show that people really appreciated it, and it was very valuable. So for people that are joining us or did join us, thank you so much. This is the first and third Monday of the month right here live on Facebook. So continue to join us for more speakers and more stories and more information twice a month. We look forward to seeing you. Ladies, thank you again. Have a wonderful week, and we'll catch up with everybody next time, okay?
Bye.
Bye.